Raise your hand if you know who Barry Sanders is. You know, the man who was widely considered to be on the short list of the greatest running backs in NFL history. The two-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Oh, how about the guy who retired at 30 years of age, seemingly still at the peak of his powers coming off of his 10th straight Pro Bowl season in as many years? Surely, being an NFL fan, you are rolling your eyes as I rattle off a few of his countless accolades. Because, of course, you know who Barry Sanders is. Despite standing at 5 foot 8 inches and a burly 200 pounds, he was probably the most elusive runner to ever play the game and absolutely shredded opposing defenses for the Detroit Lions during his 10-year career. He's been retired for over 2 decades now, but Barry's back in the news again, and for one of the most absurd reasons you can imagine, no less. So let's take this opportunity to revisit just how good Barry Sanders was and why over 20 years after his retirement, his name has been bouncing all over the internet. Barry Sanders was widely regarded as far and away the best running back in the league before he shocked everyone and abruptly retired by faxing in an official statement to the Wichita Eagle, his hometown newspaper, which read, "Shortly after the end of the last season, I felt that I probably would not return for the 1999-2000 season. I also felt that I should take as much time as possible to sort through my feelings and make sure that my feelings were backed with conviction. Today, I officially declare my departure from the NFL." Although his decision to retire in the manner with which he did it seemed to rub some people the wrong way, it was very symbolic of who Sanders was at his core. The shifty halfback was quiet and understated. When he broke off a big run or scored a touchdown, even at a pivotal moment in the game, there was no showboating or theatrics. He'd simply hand off the ball to the officials and continue to go about his business. And it had been that way ever since his breakout season at Oklahoma State, which is probably the single best season in the history of college football. During that 1988 season, despite having only amassed 947 total rushing yards in his first 2 seasons as a Sooner, Sanders exploded, rushing for 2,850 yards and tacking on an additional 106 receiving yards. And if you think that is insane, he also just accounted for the bulk of the scoring for the team, scoring 45 total touchdowns in just 12 games. It is a shocker that they didn't just rename the Heisman Trophy after him when they handed it off to him that year. The point is, pretty much everyone knows about the former All-American running back out of Oklahoma State that went on to NFL greatness for the Detroit Lions. So you would think that the good folks that live in Michigan and Oklahoma, where Barry did the bulk of his running, would have been quick to pick up on one of his fellow Sooners alum, giving him a little shout out at a Detroit show. Well, even though common sense would generally dictate that be the case, sadly, common sense rarely prevails in the world today, especially during an election year, which 2020 happens to be in the United States. So, buckle up and get ready for a story that seems too unbelievable to be true. The story of how Garth Brooks, a country music legend, accidentally got his fans so riled up that they forgot who Barry Sanders was. Okay, let me set the scene for you. It is February 2020, and in the background of our tale, politicians are in the midst of their campaigns, traveling around the country and whatnot. So we are seeing a lot of them on TV, in the news, and on social media. Meanwhile, Garth Brooks schedules a concert at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan for February 22nd. For those of you who aren't country music buffs, keep in mind, Garth Brooks is one of the best-selling artists in history. He sold 148 million domestic units, putting him second in total album sales behind only the Beatles. And remember, he's been performing since the mid-'80s, so he has toured all over the country, including Detroit, multiple times before. So his fan base knows him pretty well at this point, but like I said, it is an election year and people have collectively decided to lose their minds. And if you're not in America, trust me, it's happening. As promo for his tour right before he went on stage, he posted a rather innocuous photograph on Instagram. It was Garth walking through the tunnel towards the stage, donning his patented cowboy hat and blue jeans. But considering that the show was in Detroit and he himself was born and raised in Oklahoma, where Sanders played his college ball, he decided to try and work in a little panache for the audience. He threw on the number 20 Barry Sanders Detroit Lions jersey for the performance. Shirley Brooks, who, like Sanders, attended Oklahoma State University, thought that this would be a hit with his football-loving fan base. The two were never actually on the campus at the same time, as Brooks graduated in '84, a couple of years before Sanders came to Stillwater and started to tear up opposing defenses. But like Sanders, Garth Brooks was also on an athletic scholarship there too, for track and field to be precise. Yep, before Garth Brooks was touring the world and selling out stadiums playing the guitar, He was throwing javelins in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
People call it track and field, not track, not me. I'm field. So we stayed in.
Oh, not back then. Look at that. Look at the
that.
shanks on that guy. Look at those quads.
Anyways, the country singer thought wearing Sanders' Lions jersey to the concert would garner a positive response, so he posted it up on Instagram. But boy, oh boy, was he ever wrong. Almost immediately after he posted it, the internet streets were set ablaze and Brooks fans came pummeling through the comment sections in droves, despondent that the country singer would dare to bring politics into his show. Now, if you're as confused as I was when I first saw this news, good, because that means this craziness of the election year hasn't warped your mind. The mix-up stemmed from Brooks fans thinking that his Sanders 20 jersey was in support of Bernie Sanders, a Democratic candidate running for president in the year 2020, blatantly missing the homage to the longtime Detroit superstar running back. And let's just say that the response was far from measured. If this is for Bernie Sanders, I'm done with you. I thought you were a true American that loves our country, one fan wrote in. Weird that a millionaire would like a socialist. Hey Garth, are you going to distribute your millions? Inquired another fan. That was just the tip of the iceberg too. Nothing like supporting a communist to loss a few fans. How about going to a successful socialist country and doing some research? Oh yes, you can't because there aren't any successful socialist countries. Ah yes, I am sure Garth will be devastated to lose a few fans like this. Or one like this. Good grief, can't you just do what you get paid to do? Why doesn't have to involve politics? So sad. We don't pay good money for anything other than to watch you perform. Thought you were different. What is particularly strange about this whole situation is that Garth Brooks has very famously kept politics out of his music career. As far as Garth is concerned, it is all about supporting whichever president is elected, he explained, saying, "One of the things that's killing us right now in our country is if you didn't vote for him, then knock him for 4 years. Well, he can't do any good, so you can say, see, I was right. Screw that." That doesn't sound like a guy that would be touting a customized football jersey for a particular candidate, now does it? Not by a long shot. What's more, that isn't even the strangest part of it all. Rather, the fact that he was playing a show in Detroit, Michigan, and wore a Barry Sanders jersey, and no one could put two and two together. I mean, Barry Sanders is probably the single most iconic player in the history of the Lions franchise. His 10 years in silver and blue started off with a bang, as he won NFL Rookie of the Year honors after running for 1,470 yards and 14 touchdowns, despite being surrounded by a very subpar supporting cast. And year in, year out, he kept on churning out unbelievable statistics, despite having little to no help. It's crazy. Some of the stat lines that Sanders put up looked like they were out of a video game. He led the league in rushing for 40% of his career, and despite being the primary focus for the opposing defense every single week, he finished with double-digit touchdowns in every year of his career except for two, 1993 and his final season in 1998. Even in his down years, his numbers were ridiculous. 1993 was by far his worst statistical season as he only rushed for 1,115 yards. Yeah, you heard that right. He was still a 1,000-yard rusher in the worst year of his career. In the other 9 seasons, he never had a total lower than 1,300. At the time of his retirement, Sanders' 15,269 career rushing yards placed him second behind Walter Payton's 16,726 yards. Based off of the halfback's yearly yardage pace, he would have passed Payton's mark within 1 or 2 years. And who knows how long he could have kept piling it on for. He was still that good at the time of his retirement. I say all this to say that it is truly insane that it took so long for Brooks' outraged fans to piece it all together. Talk about a lack of appreciation for one of the all-time greats in NFL history. Brooks, on the other hand, was sure to show his respect for Sanders while on stage that fateful February night. I don't know if one of his production assistants or something had notified him that the internet was burning down because of his post, but he did reportedly take it upon himself to comment on the jersey to the crowd of nearly 70,000 people, saying, "I was lucky enough to be an athlete and to wear the same uniform as this guy wore in college. I was lucky to go to school with him. You guys got the greatest player in NFL history, in my opinion, in this jersey. I love this man." So yeah, his agenda seems to be pretty clear. Once the dust settled in a few days following the initial outrage, most of the general public seemed to understand what had transpired.
What had happened was,
save it.
Which is too bad for the one fan who wrote, "What are you saying? You're a communist or a socialist? Either way, you're a loser. Just threw out your CD." Sanders and Brooks did end up coming out okay in the whole thing, and they had a rather charming back and forth on Twitter to tie a knot on this little episode, during which Sanders reached out to Garth asking him if he wanted to be his running mate for the 2020 election. They even developed a solid hashtag for their campaign, number 20 for 2020. Garth was pretty excited by the idea of running a race with Sanders too, so while it might be a little late for 2020, maybe the two will pair up and take on American politics together someday. Until then, let's all just try to stay sane the next time a musician wears a former player's jersey, when he plays a show in the stadium that the guy played his entire career in. Do you think Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time? Is that a trick question? We'll see what you think in the comment section. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by hitting that subscribe button down below. And if you liked the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, tune in to TPS for more cool videos every single day.